Hey, I'm David, and we're Retool. Retool is a dramatically faster way of building business apps. I'll give you a bit of background first, though. So we're based in San Francisco, California. We're YC Winter 17, finished a few months ago. We just raised a seed round backed by some pretty great investors, including the co-founders of Stripe, OpenAI, PagerDuty, Color, etc. So anyways, though, Retool is just a fast way to build business apps. And you might be wondering, what exactly is a business app? Well, imagine you're YouTube, and somebody's uploaded a really dodgy video. You want to be able to approve or reject that video. That's an example of an internal business app, and every company builds tons of this shit all day, every day. One of our customers previously spent $200K and 6 months building a custom sales forecasting tool. We built it for him on the sales call in just 20 minutes from scratch. Unsurprisingly, that 75,000-person enterprise company is now a customer of ours. So you might be wondering how that's possible, right? Because, the insight really is that custom business apps all have sort of the same building blocks. You've probably seen enough business apps to know they all look really boring. They look really boring because they all have the same building blocks. They have text inputs, buttons, drop-downs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so Retool basically pre-builds all these building blocks and lets you drag and drop them and compose them to make any sort of custom business app you might want. And that's up to 50 times faster. So at this point, you're probably wondering, what's the demo? So I'll show you the demo in a second. But that's my email if you're interested. Send me an email if you are curious after the demo. Cool. Is this screen working? I'm going to set up display mirror if I can't see it, actually. So. So this demo is going to be pretty short. It's going to be maybe 2-3 minutes long, and let's leave time for questions at the end. But if you imagine you're Amazon or something, you've got a bunch of customers, and you want to build a tool basically to, let's say, see all these customers, maybe search all of them, drill down into every customer, and maybe see all their purchases, maybe export them, and then maybe, let's say, do some writes back to the database to modify the purchase table somehow. So I'll do that for you in 2-3 minutes. So how Retool works basically is you connect this to your existing SQL database, and you can write something like a SQL statement pretty quickly. The idea is that a business analyst inside IT or something would be able to build a pretty complicated app without knowing JavaScript or anything else. You can just know SQL, know how to drag and drop, and you can basically build it pretty quickly. So you can start off by running a SQL statement like this. It just pulls in all the users. So it's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple SQL statement. You can press save. And now you probably want to render these these users into a table. So you can drag on a table right there or something. And you can just change this guy to pull in data from, query1.data. Can't seem to type with one hand, but cool. So now you got user data pulled in pretty quickly, and you can paginate through it, which is pretty nice. But if you're Amazon, you probably have a ton of users, and you probably want to search the users somehow or something. So you can drag in a text input or something. You can just drag it right there, put it right there or something. And when I type, let's say, Jared or something here, I want that to actually search my database and show me all the Jareds there are. So what you can do is you can just modify the SQL statement to say, select star from users where, let's say, first name equals text input 1, and then dot value. So this guy up here is text input 1, and so text input 1 dot value would just be Jared. So if I press save over here, that will automatically update. And now I should be able to search for just Jared. So if I type Jared, I can find Jared. And if I type, let's say, Mary or something, if I can type properly, I should be able to find Mary as well. That doesn't seem to be working. So first name equals text input 1 dot value. Let's see. Anthony, you know why this isn't working?
Yeah, it's case sensitive.
Oh, sorry. My bad. Let's show that I like or something. And then press save. And there you go. You can find Mary, for example. Or if you type Jared or something, you can type Jared as well. So it's like a pretty fast search tool built in like 30 to 60 seconds. If you were to build this yourself, it would take like maybe 5-10 hours, something. So it's pretty fast. But now let's say you actually want to build more than that, right? You want to be able to say, you actually want to be able to see all the users and drill down into them and see like, what each user, what their purchases were recently. So I'll make this a bit better first by adding some fuzzy search over here. So we add a percent sign with one hand. Another percent sign. And there we go. So if we press save now, that should be doing fuzzy search. So if I type in, let's say, MA, I can find both like Mary, Maria, Margaret, et cetera, et cetera. Now if I want to drill down, what you can do is you can drag like a text component over here, and you can say this guy should display data from table 1 dot, let's say, selected row dot data dot, let's say, first name or something. And that's pretty fast. So just like how text input 1 has like a dot value, table 1 also has a dot selected row. So if I change the selected row here, that also changes. Now what's really cool is I can actually use that in a single query as well. So I can say, let's say, select star from, let's say, purchases, where customer ID equals table 1 dot selected row dot data dot customer ID. Datas. Cool. And if I just, let's say, order that. Should load, and then I can drag another table down here and say this guy should pull in data from query 2. So I'd say and let's save query 2. That's it. So now if I change Susan over here, if I change the selected row in the table 1, you can see the stuff underneath actually changes. So now I'm pulling in purchases for Lisa, for Dorothy, for Margaret, etc. If I want to search, let's say, Mary here or something, I can search Mary and then click on her to actually get all of her purchases. So that's pretty fast, for like 2 or 3 minutes to build a tool that can search users, drill down, see all their purchases. Let's say I want to export all these guys to a CSV file or something. That's like a pretty common thing. So I can drag on a button or something and say this guy should export data. I'll just say export something, purchases. I can't really spell, but it's fine. And we can say we should export, I think it's query 2 dot data. And if I press export, I'll download an Excel file of all of Mary's purchases. If I change this to Rosemary or something, I can actually export all of Rosemary's purchases too. So like in like 5 minutes, I built like a pretty interesting tool actually. This is a tool that people actually use. Like a company like DoorDash, for example, actually uses Retool every day to build like tools like these basically. And this would be like the editor mode. If you actually want to use this tool, you would actually use it this way, and you can no longer drag things around. It just sort of works. And we manage a bunch of stuff for like authentication. So we integrate with like Google Single Sign-On, Active Directory, etc. So if you just want to sign in and use it, yeah, it's pretty easy. We also manage things like audit logs. So for example, if you're doing like purchase orders, for example, you might say, hey, like it has to be approved by this person. Like when do they approve it, right? So you go put audit logs and see like, hey, it looks like David actually ran this query, like 23 seconds ago, and like et cetera, et cetera. So basically, retools are a fast way to build internal tools. Hopefully, with one hand, you can see that still. And let me know if you've got any questions. Thanks. Go for it.
First of all, this is awesome.
Thanks.
If you had additional UI widgets that you wanted to be able to, let's say you spec a particular UI widget, and you're like, boy, I wish it could do this. Is there a way to kind of add that to your?
There is, yeah. So I'll show you really quickly here.
And also styling would be a question.
Yes, I'll show you actually right now. So you can actually just click render HTML here or something. So you can write custom HTML. So write like an H1 tag or something. Here, let's say H1. Hello. You can also put custom styling here. Am I missing? Yeah, here we go. So you can actually add styling here, like style tag, let's say like color body probably, color red or something. And that would change your body to be red. So you can add like HTML, CSS, whatever you want in here.
And I guess as a follow-up question, you talked about this as for building in-house apps. Is it possible to grab components out of this and do other interesting things with them, or does it only work in a certain context?
So we say internal apps actually because it's very advantageous for us in the sense that internal apps, you don't really care about the styling. So like this looks super boring, but it's probably fine if it's just like your employees seeing it. Other things we don't have to worry about. But if you really wanted, you could. Yeah. There's nothing preventing you from doing so.
Okay, thanks.
Go for it.
Curious, amongst your real-world customers today, what's your favorite use case? What problem are they solving?
Yeah, that's a good question. People use Retool in ways that we didn't actually imagine. So we thought it'd be like building customer support tools, right? You want to look things up in the database, do like purchasing orders, whatever, like just database stuff. It turns out actually that a customer of ours called Envoy, you guys might have heard of them. They're pretty big now, actually. They use this actually for just writing scripts. So before, let's say when there is a problem with that customer support is dealing with, and let's say like a plugin is broken or something, they would actually write a script like in Ruby or something, and they would run the script to actually change everything again. Instead, now they actually just write things in Retool, so now the customer support people can actually run the script themselves, as opposed to having being bottlenecked by engineering. So the idea behind Retool sort of is that like instead of having like engineering like own everything for customer support, now customer support actually themselves is able to actually do things. And like you can just give them a tool like built in 5 minutes, you'd be like, hey, go use this, and it just works. Does that make sense? You look confused.
You mean what they've done is they've almost put like, you're the protective layer between the customer support and the database layer that prevents them from doing really, really disturbing things that you...
That's exactly it.
To do, is that?
Yes, because traditionally you would never get customer support or some non-technical person access to your database because that's really dangerous, right? But with Retool, they're like, hey, let me just spin up like a really like shitty tool really quickly that they can use and do things that are interesting. Go for it.
Does the data leave your environment?
It does not.
Through servers, or how does the data process?
So there's two ways of doing this. For smaller customers, we do like a cloud-hosted version, which would go through our environment. But we can also do for larger customers like DoorDash, Envoy, etc. We actually have like a hosted on-prem version. So it's a Docker image you'd host yourself, and you could just do whatever you want with it. Data never leaves. It can be air-gapped, whatever you want. Go ahead.
The only concern I have is product modification. If you let them change product code, APIs, who manages that inventory? What's the baseline code?
What do you mean by that?
You let customer service modify an API.
Oh, I see. Sorry. So,
like, how do you know what the definitive baseline?
Yeah. So the customer service person actually all they see is like the presentation mode, and this would be like the read-only view of Retool, and they would not be able to change anything. They would just be able to use the tool like search like Mary or something, but they wouldn't actually be able to like change this button or change what that button does, etc. So the engineer is the one who actually builds the tool, or somebody who knows SQL, like in the IT department or something. They build the tool, then they give it off, let's say their salespeople or like analysts to actually use. So they can no longer modify it.
Time for one more.
Go ahead.
Support any other sort of data sources like a Brain or REST API?
Yes, we support any data source actually, practically any data source. So if you know Postman, there's like a Postman interface here. You can say like, I want to do a REST query. You can say I want to get data from this, or I want this button to actually post data back to this or something. So you can basically use any sort of data source. Awesome. Cool, thanks.